Hey guys, I'm Evan Thorpe. This is Michelle Martinelli, and this is For the Win's College Football Breakdown. And Michelle, we finally have our national championship game set. We have Alabama going up against Clemson, but before we break down that game, let's look at the good, bad, and ugly of this year's bowl games and start off with your good.
My good has to go to Northwestern. The Wildcats played Utah in the Holiday Bowl and entered halftime with a 20-3 deficit. They tweeted in sort of a joking way that they needed to make some serious adjustments. And, you know, a lot of teams say that, doesn't always happen. With Northwestern, it absolutely did. Their defense came out firing on all cylinders. They forced 6 total turnovers against Utah, 4 of them in the third quarter alone, and they scored and capitalized off of a lot of them. Northwestern ended up coming out winning 31-20. I think Northwestern needs to start thinking about putting up a statue of Coach Pat Fitzgerald in Evanston. He's doing a phenomenal job with this team, and that's a well-orchestrated comeback.
Yeah, definitely after leading Northwestern to a conference championship game and a bowl win, he's definitely going to get a statue. For me, my good goes to Duke, who at one point were down 27-14 to Temple in the Independence Bowl, but won 56-27. Quarterback Daniel Jones pretty much showed why some players should play in bowl games. He had 423 yards, 5 touchdowns, and he's possibly going to get picked on day 1 and day 2 in a weak quarterback class. So that's my good.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about this in previous weeks about players skipping bowl games and the pros and cons of that. This is a perfect example of a player improving his draft stock dramatically and getting some extra eyeballs on him by playing in his bowl game.
Yeah, and starting off the bat, I got to go with Georgia. Before their game, they're tweeting about Notre Dame getting upset in their semifinal matchup, and then they came out and laid an egg versus Texas. They lost 28-21, and not only did they lose the game, but they lost the pregame mascot matchup. So Georgia tweeting out how they should be in showed why they weren't in, as they didn't come prepared versus Texas. Yeah,
they definitely didn't look like a college football playoff team in the Sugar Bowl. My bad goes to Miami. The Hurricanes ended up losing 35-3 to Wisconsin. And Miami had one of the best defenses in the country this year, and they let Wisconsin run all over them, literally. Wisconsin running back Jonathan Taylor rushed for more than 200 yards, and I don't know how you let one player put up that much on the ground when you're supposed to be one of the best defenses in the country. Manny Diaz, the former defensive coordinator, is going to take over at Miami after spending a total of 17 days as Temple's head coach. So even though he's very obviously defensive-minded, hopefully he'll be able to get that offense back on track.
Yeah, speaking of another defense that was looked at as one of the top defenses throughout the year, but as of late has not looked at it, your ugly's going to Michigan.
100%. The ugly is for the team that should be embarrassed, and Michigan and Jim Harbaugh should be embarrassed. For most of the season, Michigan's defense played exceptionally. Going into their last 2 games, their opponents were averaging just 13.5 points per game, and in their last 2, that average jumped up to 51.5 points per game. That is embarrassing to lose your last 2 games in a season where you were considered a playoff contender, if not a playoff lock, for several weeks, and you end your season with 2 blowout losses. That's not the kind of performance that Jim Harbaugh was hired to have. You know, you're doing well, but if you don't win these big games, if you don't end your season on a high note, what's it all for?
Yeah, and my ugly is going to one of the college football playoff teams. Notre Dame lost to Clemson 30-3, and I don't see how you can have weeks to prepare for a matchup and come out so flat. They did not look like a team that belonged in the college football playoffs, and they had a lot of people questioning, you know, is the system flawed?
Well, and we have the benefit of hindsight at this point, which I don't think you can let cloud your mindset about who was in the college football playoff this year. Notre Dame's position in the top 4 was a given. They weren't even the team we were debating. It was between Oklahoma and Ohio State and maybe even Georgia for some people. But Notre Dame was always a given, and everything they did this season leading up to the playoff showed why they were in and still deserve to be in, even though they just joined the ranks of the teams who have blowout losses in the semifinal.
Well, just to recap, Notre Dame lost to Clemson, Oklahoma lost to Alabama, and now our national championship is set up against the 2 top teams in Alabama, Clemson, And before we really break down, let's just go over some of their stats. Offensive efficiency, they are ranked 1 and 4, with Clemson coming in at 4, Alabama at 1. Defensively, they are 1 and 2 when it comes to efficiency. So clearly, we're going to get the best defense in this matchup. Points per game, these two teams are basically tied. 31 points per game that they're outscoring teams. Yards per game, they're averaging over 500. And yards allowed, they're giving up under 300. So clearly, we have, on paper, two evenly matched teams. But if you're Clemson, how can you beat this Alabama team who beat you in the national championship 2 years ago?
This game, I think, will come down to whoever's defense really steps up, because these offenses are so talented, so lethal, and very pass-oriented. Alabama is led by Heisman Trophy finalist Tua Tagovailoa, while Clemson is led by freshman quarterback Trevor Lawrence, and these two are so skilled. But it's going to be whose defense steps up, and if Clemson is to win, its secondary needs to take charge. The Tigers' defense is giving up 183 passing yards per game, while Tua is throwing more than 260 yards per game. Point blank, you have to find a way to stop him. Maybe force an uncharacteristic error, maybe get a rare interception off of him and capitalize on that. But either way, you have to somehow stifle that passing game, because he is such a great quarterback. Clemson's rush defense is very talented as well. They're number 5 in the nation. But this Alabama team, as we've mentioned several times this season, is not reliant on its run game the way it has been in the past. So it's really going to have to find a way to contain and shut down, or at least limit, Tua Tagovailoa to win this game.
All right, and if you're Alabama, what do you have to do to become repeat champions of the college football playoffs?
I mean, this whole season it's been Alabama, Alabama, Alabama. And if Nick Saban and his team want to win, they can't play like they did against Oklahoma. Their defense has to step up as well. They can't let Trevor Lawrence throw those strikes that he so easily did against Notre Dame. And, you know, the difference here is that Kyler Murray for Oklahoma was their entire offense. And basically, if Alabama shut down one person, it shut down the whole offense. That's obviously not the case with Clemson. They have Travis Etienne as their star running back, plus Trevor Lawrence. They just have a lot of offensive weapons, and they're going to have to be a very balanced defensive team to keep the Tigers contained.
All right, but we know these are the two top teams, but is it good to, you know, in 4 years, we have these two teams representing the college football championship?
I think a lot of people are their knee-jerk reaction is to say, this is boring, this is bad, I don't want to watch Clemson, Alabama Part 4. But at the end of the day, even though this is the matchup that we predicted throughout the whole season, these are the two best teams. There is a reason they are both playing each other, and isn't that what you want? Like, this isn't some, you know, one team upset another in some miraculous fashion and we think it's going to be a blowout national championship game. These are the two best teams. They've been the two best teams the whole season consistently. And now we have a real true test to determine who is actually the best when they go head to head.
All right, so let's get down to the predictions. What do you have happening in this national championship game?
Whole season it's been Alabama, Alabama. I've got to go with Nick Saban on this one. He knows how to prepare for a game against Clemson and Dabo Swinney. Even though they looked a little shaky their last 2 games, I just have no doubt that this Alabama team is going to be prepared to defend its national championship. I say Alabama wins 41-30.
I am going to go against that and say that Clemson is your new national champions. I think they win 34-31, and I feel like I'm going against everything I've said throughout this whole season.
Yeah, but you know what? This whole season, we've also been looking for a team to take down Alabama. This could be the opportunity for a real exciting game with Crimson Tide. Yeah,
so for Michelle Martinelli, I'm Evan Thorpe. Thank you guys for sticking with us, and come back next week as we have our final show of the season. Thanks again for watching.